Hello, everybody, and once again, welcome to Seeing the Whole Field. Today, on Seeing the Whole Field, I will share two different stories that changed spring training forever as we, you and I, all of us together, continue the history of spring training right now. All right, guys, I'm so excited to bring you all of this new content. We're going to start doing at least 3 episodes a week of Seeing the Whole Field. This week, we're concentrating on the history of spring training. Of course, we want to do a few things like welcome you to the show. Thank you guys very much for coming in and watching. We appreciate it. And of course, we always want you to like and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications so you never miss a video. Of course, you can comment and feel free to share this with anyone that loves sports, especially baseball. And you know what? Hit me up with something. Have you ever been to spring training? Do you love spring training? Would you like to go? I'm going to concentrate on how spring training is right now next week. And if you would like to add something to it, or you want me to talk about something, just simply hit me up in the comments and we'll do just that. All right, guys. It's St. Patrick's Day, 1918, and the Red Sox are playing the Pirates. The Red Sox have a young pitcher who becomes the emergency first baseman. And on this day, in Hot Springs, Arkansas, we talked about that in episode 1. You can go back and read it or go back and watch it if you haven't done so yet. This emergency first baseman hits 2 home runs. The second one was a truly impressive 573-foot blast that lands across the street from Whittington Park in a pond on the Arkansas Alligator Farm and Petting Zoo. Yes, that's correct. This game forever changed the life of one guy named Babe Ruth. And the trajectory of spring training baseball was never the same. Hey guys, before we jump into the second story here real quick, I want to remind you, myself, Cheese, do the Lights Out Sports podcast every Tuesday. You can join us right here on YouTube at All Gloves Off Sports Media. You can go over to our X, as it says right there below, at All Gloves Off SM, and get us as well. We're now on Twitch, we're on Facebook, we're on all kinds of platforms, so whatever platform you like, I am sure that you can find us there. Now, Bill Veeck bought the Cleveland Indians in 1946. He also signed the first black player to his club in a man named Larry Doby. He did not want Doby to play baseball as the only black man in the South, so Veeck, who owned a ranch outside of Tucson, Arizona, decided that he was going to take his team, his one and only team, out there to where this ranch was. He didn't have a league. He didn't even have a second team for that matter. But a roadside motel / gas station / taxidermy changed spring training for the second time in 1946. Now, before I get into this too much, we got to back up a few years, all right? In 1936, Ted and Alice Slinger bought a plot in Mesa, Arizona. They wanted it to be a gift shop, gas station, and a place where the two of them lived, as well as a place that Ted, who was very proud of his taxidermy collection, could display it for others to see. Then, as they got tired of trudging huge barrels of water up from downtown Mesa every couple of weeks, you got to remember, ladies and gentlemen, it's 1936, they decide to drill for a well. So Ted drilled down about 300 feet, and he did discover water. Problem is, it was about 113 degrees and full of minerals. What they found was a bubbling hot springs literally in their backyard. So now all of a sudden, they have a modern day hotel and a hot springs, and Buckhorn Baths was born. Tourism picked up, soldiers became frequent customers, and the word started to spread. Now, a man named Horace Stoneham, who was the owner of the Giants back then, also had land outside of Tucson, and he began to frequent the Buckhorn Motel. He even got to know the owners, Ted and Alice, and he believed in the healing powers of their hot springs. So he decided to have his team practice at the motel, and even brought his better players out early to receive hot springs treatment. So starting in 1947, the Giants called the Motel their spring training home for 25 years. Then the Cubs followed, and so did the Orioles, and honestly, so did Hollywood types like JFK was there, Andy Garcia, and Burt Reynolds, just to name a few. Now, as far as major league players that names you're going to recognize that were at Buckhorn Baths, those men included Ty Cobb, Ted Williams, Willie McCovey, Juan Marichal, Joe DiMaggio was there, Mel Ott, and Willie Mays were just some of the names that came through Buckhorn over the years. During an era of segregation, when the few black people who were playing, like Willie Mays, at this time usually had to stay in separate facilities. But that was never the case at Buckhorn. Willie Mays and other African American players stayed right there with their fellow white players. Now, owner Ted died in 1984, and Alice continued to run the motel in his absence. And if you're kind of wondering to yourself right now, if the hot springs that are still in Mesa, Arizona, have healing powers, well, let me tell you this. Alice lived to be 103. That's right. Now, tomorrow we'll wrap up the history of spring training, and we'll do so like the 60s, 50s, and we'll talk about what happened in those 2 decades in the grapefruit and in the cactus leagues. We'll do all of that tomorrow. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you now that I certainly appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, staying with us, and learning more about the history of spring training. Last, as always, don't be afraid to sling it, swish it, or swing it. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the one thing I know is that you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Until tomorrow, have a great evening. Thank you all very much.